Well, Anthony Moyles is with us in studio. You called Derry Tyrone correctly?
Well, yeah, I suppose I won't. I'm sure I'm going to make plenty more mistakes. So, yeah, I just think it felt that way. I know you guys were talking about it obviously a lot last week, and we've been obviously following Derry through the league. Look, I was massively impressed with them, Ger. Massively impressed with them. Now, we can get on to Tyrone in a few minutes because definitely Tyrone didn't help themselves. But obviously they've loads of talent throughout the squad, but massive amount of pace and also an ability to back themselves. So, there's a willingness to back themselves, first of all. So, I think there has been an awful trait through football over the last number of years that when you come into the tackle, you retain possession. So you spin back out of the tackle and you pass the ball backwards or sideways or whatever it is. Whereas they were 100% drilled. You could see it. They were willing to back themselves, but also they had the skills and the speed to execute that actually when they came to a man, they took him on. So, I think teams, and I know we've spoken about this before, about this whole risk-reward, and you can see it in how Dublin are trying to change in certain things. The whole idea now of retain possession. The better teams are realising actually, that's only going to get you so far. Yeah. So we need to have a risk-reward situation here, and the risk-reward when I come up against even you or even two players is I'm going to have to try to take you on. And if you're really busying yourself during training sessions to get adept at that, to get confident at it, to know how to do it, ball in the outside hand when you're going past a man on your right side, all those little small things, but things actually, to be honest with you, that has been forgotten about. Like if you go to training sessions up and down the country, from kids to senior men, you won't see fellas taking each other on anymore. It's just not the thing that was done. Years ago it was done because you invariably you came across those collisions. Those kind of interactions were much more prevalent because it was one-on-one an awful lot. So you had to take your man on. You always heard it being roared in, take him on. Whereas for the last number of years it wasn't, it was retained. So their ability to do that, obviously to back themselves, they just showed Tyrone as Tyrone looked like a slow team, a labouring team.
Let's talk about Tyrone. How did that happen? How did they go from being All-Ireland champions who were self-confident against anybody in any situation last year with a really well-drilled game plan and a beautiful rhythmic style where they could go long if they needed to? They were the ones who would have Conor McKenna bursting on a straight line, knowing exactly what everybody knew what their role was, to that team that looked like they were uncertain of everything. Every aspect of their game plan looked uncertain.
And you've hit the nail on the head there. That was the uncertainty. You could see it literally from minute one, that they were kind of looking around going, okay, who's going to take the mantle on here? And you've seen that throughout the league, bar a couple of fellas like Myler and Hart in a few games. I think, let's start from the top. I thought the selection was a bit strange. Canavan has been one of their best forwards in the league. I felt he's been a guy who's tied an awful lot of things in. For him not to start, I was kind of going, okay, that's an interesting one. The McKenna thing, getting back, all of that, did that kind of throw the eye off the ball? I find it very, very difficult to put my finger on exactly what's going on. There's obviously something going on, and we've said this inside the camp. There's 6 or 7 people to hit the high road. It's not like you're hitting the high road from a team that's about number 12 in the country. You're hitting the high road from the All-Ireland champions. You have probably a decent enough fair crack at the whip of getting another medal in your back pocket, and you're deciding, actually, I've done with this. So there's something going on there. There's a paradigm involved there between someone that something's not working. There's a miscommunication, or there's something, people aren't believing what they're being told, right? So that's that on its own. 7 out of a potential panel of 30. That's a big number. Well, it's not 2.
Changes the quality of your training significantly.
Well, so the actual fundamentals of it is it does all that, but what does it do for the atmosphere around the whole place? They're pals of fellas. They're fellas that they've gone into battle before with. This idea of number 1 is the same as number 30. well, is it? You know, so you've all of that going on. Then you come down to actually just their execution and how they're playing, and as I said, they look slow. Now, of course, they're not slow, right? They're still the same team. They're still able to do all of those things that we know they can do. But when you're not really believing it, when you're not really believing your own role in it, when you're not really sure of your direction of where you're going, they seemed completely confused. They showed an unbelievable lack of heart. There's a clip. I don't like calling players out, but O'Neill comes on at half time. He's on the pitch, I'd say only 5 or 6 minutes. A kick out comes. He contests the kick out. He loses the kick out. I think he fouls the man. I can't remember who is the half back for Derry. He kicks only a short little kick pass, about 10-15 metres, and he basically jogs back. Now he's only on the pitch. And I remember rewinding it 2 or 3 times, and I just said, like, the lack of desire to get back, the lack of desire. I've never seen a team in Ulster come out with the ball as easy as the Derry backs were coming out with the ball. Like, they were just sauntering out. Like, they were literally able to pick their man out, come out there, get one tackle on them, and then there was no hunger, there was no intensity at all in the tackle. The forwards, like McShane spent half the game on the ground. I don't know, look at me, he was like he was skating. Like, I mean, he just kept falling on the ground. He couldn't keep his footing. His tackle level, like, if you see it, he'd throw in one tackle, and it was one of those, I'm tackling just because I have to tackle you, but it was no real intensity to go after the man, and then he'd stand up kind of, you know, saying, well, that didn't work out for me. So I think they're in absolutely dire straits, to be honest with you. And Derry could have beaten them by more.
Well, can you recover from that? Can Tyrone recover? Like,
what are they, 5 weeks?
A big long break. Don't know who they're playing yet. There are some teams floating around in the qualifiers who might be no good, like, who might not be at their level.
They need one of those. Like, I mean, people will argue now, okay, they'll go back to the club, they might play a round or two. That's probably what I would do. I'd be saying, right, we're doing a round of championships or something here in the club. Get them away for a minute, because obviously, and then the management team are going to have to have a think about, right, how do we re-engineer the atmosphere here, and where is our motivation to get them? So do we hunker down and we go, you're all Ireland champions, lads, never mind what's going on here, we're not going to let this, have you any pride at all, that type of thing, you know, our backs are to the wall.
They did that twice last year, once after the game in Killarney and once around COVID. Like,
yeah,
so, you know,
you're going back to the well again.
Yeah, and in fairness, like, it's reanimating a corpse, but that's what zombies do, you know.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
I'm not quite writing them off yet, but there's a lot of evidence. If you want to write them off, I wouldn't stop you making the case.
Like, I think if they got one of the top teams in that qualifier draw, a team that we wouldn't have expected, say, to be in there, shall we say, like, it's funny, it'll be the making or they're done, you know.
Yeah.
And if they're done, I think they could peter out, you know.
They could get hammered by a Mayo or somebody.
Yeah.
Like another 10, 12 points.
Yeah, and I don't even know getting someone weak and you get over them by 7 or 8 or 9 or 10. That doesn't do a whole pile for you coming into the next one. It really doesn't. There's still the big question marks. They need a big win, and I just can't see it at the moment.
Like, what was interesting to me on Sunday was this, like, Derry really kind of brought a physicality to the game. So they did to Tyrone what Tyrone had done to so many teams in the past, to the point where Tyrone got completely wound up. Obviously, the kick out, the throwing of the ball. Like, how does that happen? How do, like, I think that's one of the reasons why Tyrone have been so good in Ulster down through the years, is that they've been the aggressor in a very aggressive place. And it seems that they just they got completely got out-aggressed, if that's even a phrase, by Derry. I don't know what happened. It was just, like, so un-Tyrone for them to be on the receiving end of that, rather than the ones giving it.
I think two things happened there. One that, so it's probably the cause and effect. The cause, I think, is certainly a situation where you don't understand your North Star. You're kind of what Ger was saying. You don't really understand the roles, and there is this sense of, we're going in here, like, players aren't stupid, so management teams can kind of talk about, you know, this is what we're doing, and we're all very confident now in doing this, aren't we, lads? And really, players will be questioning it, right? They will be questioning it, and you know, we've spoken before about, say, conceding kickouts to teams or setting up a certain way. Players understand. like if it's a really, really solid strategy that you're, say, deciding you're doing this because you know you're going to have a great chance of winning the game, or is it just a strategy of you're keeping the score down? Players will feed off that, and when players go into a game, no matter what you're saying, players will know, and straight away, as soon as the whistle is blown, you will see it in their body language. Tyrone looked to me like a team with the body language of, we don't really know where we're going here, we don't really know what we're at, there's players being shifted all over the place, are we really confident in the positions we're in? Like, look at McGeary, look at certain players, look at McShane. They're playing with zero confidence, these lads. Zero confidence compared to McShane. McShane looks about 5'10", 5'11" now. He doesn't look 6'3". Like, I look at him and I kind of go, geez, you'd blow him away. Whereas last year, you see him coming on, you're thinking, this lad's in beast mode. He's coming on here to knock everyone out of the park. He doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't knock any lads over. That's not a physicality thing. That's just a mentality thing. So what happens then is, because you know that, Owen, you also remember, the grey matter is gone, but you wear that. You have an All-Ireland in your back pocket. So then the frustration comes in. And of course, what happens is a fella's in your face and you're getting more and more annoyed at yourself because you know you can do it, but you're just not doing it, and you just lash out. And it's a simple, small thing. It's
funny, we had Grota Hegarty on the show like 2 weeks ago, or just before the first match in the championship, and he talked about the league campaign last year and the league campaign this year, where you get a little bit narky because you're not quite at the level you should be at, and that was the hallmark of that. It was like, you would expect them to know not to do the stupid things they did, because they weren't sent off for violent conduct. It was stupidity,
passion stuff.
Like, so look, I don't know, maybe there's a long enough break that they can get a lot of work done.
Yeah, for me the question is, like, where is the ceiling? So, like, I mean, the Limerick thing is interesting because they have such a high ceiling. Once they refound that spark, they could blow teams away. Chances are Dublin maybe went through this at various times during the 6 in a row, but because Leinster was so weak, it never actually showed on the scoreline. Maybe today against Carlow, when Connolly has the altercation with the linesman, maybe that's actually a moment like Tyrone had at the weekend, except for the fact that Dublin were just so much better that there was never going to be a result that was in danger. So maybe this is something that they can turn around. Maybe this is the moment that can spark a turnaround in their season, because it has happened before. It has happened with maybe defending All-Ireland champions or teams at the very top of the pile.
Of course, there's the possibility. They still have enough quality in the squad, and certainly on that starting 15, or a couple of lads have come in. I'm surprised, I'm just surprised. I thought, like, the Donnellys, Richie Donnelly was making quite an impact in the league. There was just an odd feel to the whole team. There was an odd feel to the players that came in.
Yeah.
There was guys I was kind of going, where's he? Like, why isn't he on?
Yeah.
And I know championship, there's often a couple of lads who are pulled out of the hat in championship time, but it just doesn't look like a happy camp to me.
Given that, right, is there any possibility we actually overrate what Derry have done, and that Monaghan are sitting there licking their chops going, happy days, you guys go off and celebrate like you've just won Sam, we know what this is about, we're the old dog for the hard road?
They certainly will be, because they love this. They're sitting away. No one's mentioning them. Everyone was expecting them to do a job on down, and they did the job on down, and they did it very, very efficiently and effectively. And all the talk will be about, of course, Derry. But I think Gallagher is smart enough to realise. The players, I think, were pretty subdued after it. The Derry players. I didn't see them whooping and hollering and jumping around and going bananas. Like, they'd be okay. They'd beaten the All-Ireland champions. That's still a feather in the cap.
Yeah.
He was jumping around a bit, but I think he was jumping around. That was a bit more probably, manager
players
to
up
manager.
for it.
Yeah, and also, he was sticking it to Dooher and Logan probably.
Yeah.
He's been on the receiving end of those beatings before. So he himself, but I think he's smart enough, and I think his backroom team be smart enough to be able to say, well, actually, listen, let's analyse this, and you know what, maybe they weren't all that they were, before, and maybe we got them on a bad day, etc., etc. And there's a different animal coming to town, because Monaghan looked very well equipped and very strong, very compact, very capable of putting up a big score. But I still think Derry are a good outfit.
Yeah.
Now, will they be given the type of situation? Because you'd imagine Monaghan will say they love to run, lots of power coming from the halfbacks. So what we're going to do is we're going to meet them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
We're just going to meet them.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's well set up to be a massive game where the prize is going to be you get to play Donegal potentially.
Yeah. The hits keep
prize.
coming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Dubs, right? The Dubs had a really strong bench, and they had Con back, and
who would have known that, huh?
They all look lean, and Fenton seems to be taking it personally that people were saying, sure, look, because he was. We were talking about Brian Fenton as the greatest footballer of all time for a while there, and that conversation stopped, and he's like, "Why did that stop?" Hang on a second, I'm still like, I'm not finished here.
Yeah,
there's still plenty of time for him to add to his legacy. So, how dangerous are Dublin?
I mean, so I'm not. Wexford were bad. They were poor. They were very poor, right? We talk about body language and we talk about setting up, and I'm a little bit disappointed in them. And people will say whatever, but I thought last week they would have had a right cut, because I thought the soundings coming from the camp where it's a young team and we're just going to have a rip at them. And I was saying, Jesus, you know what? Fair play. Just have the rip.
Yeah.
But they didn't, right? They from the throw up you could see, well, actually this is not what this game plan is going to be. It's going to be about containing them, trying to catch them on the break, and they just said, period. Now, the flip side of the coin, Dublin were very, very efficient and very effective. But we've said this before, unless you're putting that back six under pressure against Dublin, and the new goalkeeper, third choice, make him kick the ball out. I don't care, give a damn, my lads, if you kick the thing 40 yards wide, let's face his kick out and let's squeeze him a little bit and let's put a bit of pressure on him. I think he had 7 kickouts for the whole game. Right, so you're not going to win. You're not going to win that, and literally you're going to give them the ball. And of course, they weren't in the mood to say, "Well, we'll just pass the ball around here." They went for the jugular straight away. So, were they very impressive? Yes, they were. Were they allowed to be very impressive? I think they were. But yes, O'Callaghan gives them that focal point. When you look at the bench and look at the ability of who they were able to bring on, I still don't think that 6 is an All-Ireland winning 6. The 6 that started.
Yeah.
I think that there will probably be changes, obviously, with McCarthy and the likes. I'm surprised by the Davy Byrne omission. I think Davy was probably hung out to dry a little bit during the league with no real support around him. So, but again, it just shows the strength and depth. Okay, but I'm not so sure. It's like, I look towards the Meath game, and certainly they will be matched in midfield with athleticism. Menton and Jones will be able to motor and will be able to go at Fenton and Lahif, right? They will be able to put more pressure on them going backwards, and the Meath forward line, you would imagine, will be a bit more, will have more in them. So it's going to be a situation not necessarily of the question marks over the front 6, it's going to be the question marks over that back 6 for Dublin.
Okay, Dublin are 8-point favourites for that game against Meath. I think that's too much.
Yeah, you see, Meath haven't shown a whole pile, obviously, in different kind of league campaign. The game against Wicklow was okay. Andy even said afterwards, he wasn't that happy because they just weren't really, he felt, at the pitch of it. They tried a new few fellas, came in, made their debuts, did well. They ended up winning the game fairly well on the scoreline, but actually Wicklow were playing really good stuff. And Wicklow were doing a massive amount of conditioning, and the players was excellent. They were doing a massive amount of work and have been doing a massive amount of work. And they were still in that game with 50 minutes gone. They were matching Meath nearly score for score, except Meath were getting a few goals. Yeah. Meath are probably scratching their head, but look, it's Meath Dublin. The Meath fellas will be absolutely zero. They won't fall for motivation coming into this one. And if any time, I think this is the best time for me to get them, because if you got them after a Kildare or a Westmeath win, they will be ones. I don't think Dublin have learned a whole pile about themselves. Like, let's be honest, Desi Farrell's sitting there and he's going, right, I still don't know anything about my 6, and we shipped a lot of heavy scores in the league. I still don't know how Meath can get at us in that back line. I know I have Con back, great, tick the box, but sure, he was going to come back anyway, and he's probably going to do what he was going to do. And when you hand them the ball out around the middle and say, listen, do what you want there with the ball, and there's no real pressure on them, they're going to absolutely fillet you, which is what they did. So it's going to be a different kettle of fish against you. I think 8 is generous. I hope it's generous, and I think it's generous because I think there's still enough question marks over certain individuals in that defence and the way they are and the way they've been playing that Meath can get after them.
We need to see a defensive structure from the Dubs, really, and hopefully Meath will make them reveal what that is to us, because there wasn't one in the league.
Correct. Yeah, well, I think, John Small's injury didn't help an awful lot, because John would have played that +1 role where he kind of has always covered that central, that D area. He's always been the man who has intercepted those balls, or who's just been there as a presence. So when you look up to kick in, you're like, oh, he's there, and he's just marshalling that defence. He's only allowed to do that when there's other individuals around him. So, yeah, I have, and maybe they have this defensive that they're yet to reveal, and maybe they've just been kind of playing kind of silly buggers throughout the whole league and kind of leaving, as I said, fellas one-on-one. But when they're playing that type of game that they're playing, which is more of a kicking game and breaking up the pitch, it is leaving a bit more at the back, a little bit more fellas exposed. So can they handle it? That question will only be answered, I suppose, as they get better quality forwards against them. Okay,
it's going to be interesting to see as we evolve. One last point. I was accused of yerring ahead of the Louth game, but like Louth have ghosts for Kildare that few other teams actually have. Everybody else, you're like, okay, we understand what the rules are here, but Kildare were efficient, ruthless, energetic, aggressive, everything you want. It was like they have an identity again.
Yeah, we spoke about this on Friday, and Louth's star had absolutely risen. But at the same time, they came up against a county in Leinster whose star has also risen, regardless of the fact, like, they were only within a kick of the ball of staying in Division 1, right? So, people will look at the campaign and say, oh, well, they went down to Division 2, but really when you focus in on it, you're saying, that doesn't tell the true story.
We've gone down before where we lost every game and hadn't a chance of winning any of those games, whereas 100%. In this situation it was like, okay, I understand exactly why that happened.
But also, I've seen, obviously plenty of people in Kildare, and even just chatting to people around on the border of the stuff. There's a different vibe in Kildare. There's a different atmosphere in Kildare. I've seen the work that Glenn and Johnny and the lads are doing, even where they're kind of clapping kind of kids on, and kids are kind of clapping them into Newbridge. There's an inclusiveness around the game again, which I think hasn't been there for the last number of years. And the inclusiveness comes from the fact that these fellas are legends, obviously, in the Kildare jersey, but that doesn't necessarily make it that it will work, right? It can often go the other way. The fact is that they've done it at underage. Like Johnny Doyle has been involved there, Anthony Rainbow, they've all been involved at underage. They've all seen how they've all been involved at club level, so they know the intricacies of it. They know the workings of the county board. They know what they need to probably do to get what they want and not get what they want, if you get me. So there's a load of stuff, and then they know how to probably, like, more than anyone, how passionate Kildare fans are, and all they need is a spark. And Kildare fans are like Meath fans. They really just want to see the team putting effort in.
Yeah.
Just give us something to hold on to. Try and win. Yeah. Like, I mean, don't set up not to win. Just try and win. And they're seeing that with them. They're seeing that with them. And Kildare, same as I said, they won't get worried if you get bet by 4 or 5 if you actually go out there and put your body on the line and try to do it. And you can see that in them. So was I surprised? I was surprised probably by the measure of it, to be honest with you, but I wasn't surprised that they won. And they need to, the one thing that they need to probably just make sure it doesn't happen is where they go away from script a little bit, and some fellas who shouldn't be taking shots start taking, and then that brittleness. I slightly worried about, say, Meath and Kildare, in the sense of if they hit the mask of Dublin and expect it to fall handily, it won't fall.
No.
You're going to have to keep hitting this thing repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. Just because it's cracked doesn't mean that it's just going to fall off straight away.
They let Louth back into the game in the third quarter, and there's just maybe it's natural. You're not going to win 75 minutes of championship football against a team who have good players and dominate the whole thing. But there was definitely a bit where it went from 11 points to 5 pretty quickly. And if that was against the Dubs, that'd be 2-3 scored in this game over. So sure, look, we're still in it.
Still in it. Look at this, Yera, 2 weeks in a row.
He's learning from the best now, to be honest, though. It is eventually you have seeped your Yera-ness into him.
No, anyway, it's absolutely infuriating to listen to this crap.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Bloody hell, it's an absolute disgrace. It's lying, basically. That's what it is. It's dishonesty.